January 2014, an intrepid team of individuals from First Baptist Church in Rogers, Arkansas, joined an equally adventurous group from Voice of Hope Ministries for a medical and construction mission to the area of Rio Blanco in the central highlands of Nicaragua. Upon landing in Managua, we boarded the Voice of Hope bus that would take us to Rio Blanco. After first stopping for lunch at what can now be called the world-famous Pollo Frito restaurant, we hit the road for the 5.5-hour ride to our destination.
Si tuvieras fe como un grano de mostaza, eso lo dice el Señor. Si tuvieras fe como un grano de mostaza, eso lo dice el Señor. Tú le dirías a la montaña, muévete, muévete. Tú le dirías.
Roughly halfway to Rio Blanco, we made a pit stop at Cafeteria Ana in the town of Muy Muy. On our first morning in Rio Blanco, we ate breakfast at Hotel Bosawas, which was to be our base camp for the week. Then we headed up the road to Iglesia Bautista Jardín de Eden to join in worship with the local congregation. The church, known as Garden of Eden Church in English, is led by Pablo, one of 2 Nicaraguan mission pastors with whom we worked during the mission. The mission team participated in the worship service. Ben Fox taught a brief Bible lesson for children. Rob Douthit gave his testimony of how he came to faith in Jesus. And Bob Wilson gave a stirring evangelistic sermon based on Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman at the well. At the close of the service, the mission team prayed for Pastor Pablo, his family, and the Garden of Eden congregation. Sunday afternoon, we went into Rio Blanco to buy rubber boots, a necessary fashion accessory for those hiking and working in the soggy Nicaraguan countryside. During our shopping excursion, we witnessed a local wedding procession. Shortly after acquiring our boots, we enjoyed a hike into the Cerro Musun natural area just outside of Rio Blanco. The trail led us to a picturesque waterfall on the upper reaches of the river from which Rio Blanco takes its name. Pastor Pablo took a plunge off the top of the waterfall. This, of course, inspired some of our team to follow his lead. Monday morning, we loaded up in a stake truck to begin the journey to El Guabo, where we would conduct the first medical clinic. Dr. Bob said our transportation reminded him of a scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I noted that all the guys in the back of that truck died. The road that carried us toward El Guabo passes by a number of farms and typical rural farmhouses. The rugged road is narrow, steep in places, and prone to mud holes that snared our truck more than once. At one point, falling behind schedule, we abandoned the truck. We climbed a steep hill before realizing the driver had finally freed the truck from the mud. He picked us up and soon delivered us to the trailhead to El Guabo. The plan was to hike in, hold the clinic, and hike out before dark. There were mules to carry most of the medical supplies, and it turned out there were extra mules on which some of us were able to ride into El Guabo. The area had more rain this year than we experienced in 2013, and at least one creek was too swollen to wade across. The hikers crossed on a bridge made from a tree, but the mule riders were led to a different crossing. When I saw what our guide had in mind, I thought, this must be some kind of Nicaraguan humor. Soon, we arrived at El Guabo Church, where people were already lined up and waiting to see the docks. So we prayed up, geared up, and went to work. Despite getting a late start, we saw 139 patients at El Guabo, and 17 people surrender their lives to the Lord. Before we knew it, we were headed back down the mountain toward Rio Blanco.
Adiós. Adiós.
The next morning, we boarded a new truck and headed up the same road. This time, we were going deeper into the mountains. And once again we got stuck. Real stuck. But we persisted and reached Las Peñitas. There we found the trailhead to Roca Redonda, Round Rock. Here, we met a man who told us he was 102 years old, and Edie decorated her cute rubber boots with spurs. Then we mounted up and hit the trail to Round Rock. The trail ride to Round Rock was 4.6 miles and took about 4.5 hours. Mostly we climbed, though at one point we descended into a valley. Including climbing back out of that valley, our total ascent was over 2,000 feet. We crossed farms, creeks, and ravines, sometimes in the rain. Nearly every hilltop opened onto magnificent vistas. At the top of a 2,300-foot hill, we reached the farmhouse that would be our medical clinic and home for the next 2 days and nights. We learned that the locals called the area Piedra Redonda, another Spanish rendering for Round Rock. Our host kitchen also served as the pharmacy, and medical exams were stationed throughout the house. Because of the trip up the mountain, we only had a few hours to see patients on Tuesday. Yet we saw 84 people, and 5 souls prayed to receive Jesus. Wednesday, we established a morning routine of waiting our turns at a respectful distance from the facilities. While breakfast was being prepared and eaten, people were already gathering for the clinic. Pastor Pablo sharpened his saw blade for the construction project. Once we got rolling, the medical clinic ran nearly non-stop until after dark. Everyone who came to the clinic heard the gospel before seeing a doctor. On Wednesday alone, we saw 303 patients, and 32 people gave their lives to Christ. These boys found my crude Spanish entertaining in the pharmacy. And this family decided Jack's hammock made a comfortable place to wait for friends and family who were still in the clinic. Meanwhile, the construction team hiked 20 or 30 minutes to their work site. By the end of the day, they had built a church. And throughout the day, Jack pumped out liter after liter of purified water to keep us alive and working. Thursday morning, we were reminded that our clinic was a working farm, and the cows needed to be milked. A farmer who had come to the clinic on Wednesday returned Thursday morning with a gift of cacao pods for Jerry. Breakfast, on our last morning in Round Rock, was a time to slow down and appreciate the people whose home we'd invaded during the clinic. Before we knew it, the mules arrived for the first stage of our homeward journey. Some of our team preferred to hike down the mountain. The rest mounted up and rode out of Round Rock. During the hike out, Jeff suffered the curse of having feet that were too big for Nicaraguan rubber boots. At the end of the trail, we found the truck waiting for us at Las Peñitas. For the week, we saw 532 patients, including a few who weren't recorded in our official records. In all, 55 people made professions of faith, and hundreds were introduced to the ministries of the mission churches in El Guabo and Round Rock.
Qué felicidad, qué felicidad, qué felicidad.